With best hours left earlier than his execution, his very last request wasn't for a last meal or a phone call. It was to peer his canine one ultimate time. However, what befell next would silence the jail, freeze the guards, and resolve a fact buried for years. That morning, the air within the detention center felt heavier, as though the very walls knew what became coming. Each sound, the clink of keys, the echo of trainers on concrete, carried a weight that pressed down on anyone internal. In his cellular, Michael sat on the edge of his cot, fingers loosely clasped, eyes fixed on the bloodless floor. He wasn't the same man who had walked in 7 years in the past. Time and regret had carved deep traces into his face, softening the once sharp defiance in his eyes. The guards predicted the everyday ultimate request: a steak dinner, a name-to-own family, perhaps a very last letter. But when the warden asked, Michael's voice became low, consistent. "I want to look friend, my canine." A pause. A few guards exchanged glances. A condemned man selecting a canine over humans. Remarkable. But for Michael, Pal wasn't only a pet. He changed into the handiest one who had stood with the aid of him before the arrest, before the trial, before the world turned its back. In his final hours, he did not want forgiveness from strangers. He just desired to inspect the eyes that had never judged him. The warden leaned again, fingers steepled. He'd seen abnormal final requests: ice cream, a guitar, a clergyman who in no way showed. But bringing a dog into a most protection prison on execution day? By no means. Within the manage room, officials debated. "It's a security chance," one said. "We've in no way allowed an animal in right here, in particular for Demise Row." An older officer, quieter, spoke up. "Pal is all he has left. No side visitors, no letters, no person." He paused. "Perhaps we ought to permit him move in peace." The warden asked for the file. Michael's report changed into clean. No fights, no infractions, no breakout tries. Within the private notes, owned a German Shepherd named Buddy for 8 years. The dog was seized on the time of arrest. After a protracted silence, the warden nodded. Beneath strict supervision. Yard most effective. 10 mins. Word spread fast. A few guards shook their heads. Others whispered approximately the bond among a man and his canine. For Michael, the once 10 minutes have been an eternity. Someplace obtainable, Pal changed into on his manner. And neither of them knew how a great deal this moment might trade the whole lot. The prison yard stood nevertheless because the A-Way's gate creaked open. Michael stood some feet from a lone chair, wrist cuffed loosely in front of him, eyes locked on the doorway. Then he saw him. Buddy trotted in, his black and tan coat sparkling beneath the faded morning mild. Officers flanked him, leash taut. However, it turned into clear friend had already noticed his guy. His ears shot forward. His tail started out to wag, sluggish at the beginning, then faster, like a heartbeat locating its rhythm. Michael's breath stuck. Years had passed, but not anything. The grey in the muzzle, the moderate stiffness within the legs, may want to disguise the dog he had raised from a domestic dog. The officials glanced at the warden. An unmarried nod. The leash slackened. Friend surged forward. Michael dropped to his knees simply as the dog slammed into his chest, urgent his head into Michael's shoulder, whining, a legitimate court among joy and grief. For a second, the jail vanished. No countdown, no dying order. Only a man and his dog reunited. Michael buried his face within the thick fur, breathing inside the heady scent. Vintage leather, earth, home. Recollections flooded lower back. Long walks, muddy paws, quiet nights when Friend's regular breathing saved him from falling apart. But then Friend froze. His body went rigid. Tail stopped mid-wag. Ears pivoted. A deep guttural growl rumbled from his chest. Michael felt it earlier than he heard it. Buddy wasn't searching at him anymore. His gaze turned into locked on a person standing 10 toes away. Officer Collins, tall, stiff, palms clasped at the back of his returned. The growl deepened, teeth flashing in a silent caution. Guards shifted uneasily. "Manage your dog," one muttered, stepping forward. But Michael placed a hand on Pal's again. "Clean boy. It's okay." It wasn't. Buddy had in no way growled like this without cause. Collins averted eye contact, jaw tight. Michael's mind raced. He knew his canine's instincts, and Friend changed into in no way incorrect. For the primary time that morning, suspicion stirred. Something about this guy became setting Friend off. And in an area in which every second counted, instincts, in particular a canine's, may want to imply everything. Buddy stayed anxious, body angled in the direction of the gate where Collins had disappeared. Officer Ramirez, a defend who had always handled Michael with quiet appreciation, approached. "Your dogs were given an amazing nostril," he stated low. "What's his hassle with Collins?" Michael shrugged, careful no longer to expose too much. "Friend doesn't growl at strangers for fun." Ramirez frowned. "Humorous component, Collins became an obligation the night time you have been arrested, but he in no way referred to it." The words hung heavy. Michael kept his eyes on Pal, however his thoughts changed into racing. If Collins became there, why wasn't it in the record? As though summoned, Collins reappeared on the some distance cease of the backyard. Pal's growl back, sharp and unrelenting. Ramirez's eyes narrowed. "That's not regular." The warden, looking from the tower, called down. "What's occurring?" No person answered. The air changed into charged. Something unspoken changed into circling. Michael knew one aspect: this wasn't just a goodbye. It became the beginning of something else. Later that afternoon, the warden summoned Michael to a small interview room. Buddy changed into allowed to live, still looking the door like a sentinel. Ramirez stood inside the nook, palms crossed. Collins stood across from them, stiff, eyes cold. The warden spoke. "Collins, why didn't you disclose that you had been on website online the night of Michael S. arrest?" Collins' jaw tightened. "Didn't think it mattered. I used to be off obligation, just passing by way of." Pal let out a sharp bark, loud and sudden. His eyes locked on Collins, growl growing like thunder. Ramirez improved. "Humorous, due to the fact the witness just got here forward. Said they noticed a man matching your description leaving Michael S. residence earlier than the police arrived." The warden's expression darkened. "We're reopening the case. Powerful straight away, the execution is delayed." Michael felt the air rush back into his lungs. No longer freedom, no longer but wish. Collins glared at him, however it didn't depend. For the first time in years, the truth had a crack to slide through. And it all started out with a canine who refused to neglect. The research moved quick. The brand new witness, the retested fingerprints. They didn't belong to Michael. They matched Collins. Weeks had passed. Greater evidence surfaced. Collins had been on the scene. He'd planted proof. He had dedicated the crime. He changed into arrested, charged with the very homicide Michael was sentenced for. The prosecution dropped the costs. The prison gates, once the stop of Michael's life, now swung open to set him free. And there, simply past the fence, turned into friend tail wagging, eyes brilliant. Michael dropped to his knees, buried his face in the fur, whispered, "We made it, boy, we made it." He walked ahead. No cuffs, no guards, no partitions. Just open sky and the sound in their footsteps on free floor. The world hadn't modified tons, however Michael had. He wasn't the person described by means of a sentence. He became the person his canine had believed in all along. And now, way to that loyalty, he had a 2D wrist to stay and to show Pal right. This story reminds us that love doesn't want words. That loyalty doesn't care approximately courtrooms or time. Sometimes the fact doesn't come from a witness stand. It comes from a dog who recalls. If this tale moved you, please like, percentage, and subscribe. Live with us for more heartwarming, great tales of braveness, loyalty, and second chances. Your next adventure starts off evolved right now at the display in the front of you.